When God brought me into this world, He thought it would be a good idea that I would fit perfectly as the seventh member of a low-income family in the city of Barinas, Venezuela. My father will be a construction worker and an amateur tango singer, and my mother will be a cook. I would have a solid roof over my head and great meals every day. So that would mean I would be a chubby baby. My father, whose dream was that I learn his tango songs, he introduced me to a folk instrument called the cuatro. He taught me a few chords and the lyrics of famous songs by Carlos Gardel. But fate had a different plan. By the time I turned 5 years old, my parents divorced, and my mother, who never went to school, had to cook for a living during odd hours. My father will continue to care for me, but he was no longer living with us. That's around the time when God sent his first angel to look after me. His name was Victor Hugo, and he became my cuatro teacher and friend. With him, I traveled around the country performing at folk music festivals, and after 2 years of that, he thought it would be a good idea that I try classical music. He took me himself to the local music school during a busy afternoon day, where all the students were playing. It was noisy, but when I saw the cello, it was like love at first sight. I knew at that moment that I wanted to be a cellist, nothing else. So my mother signed me up for music lessons. This particular program, luckily for me and my parents, was part of a nationwide program called El Sistema. This meant that along with other hundreds of thousands of children, I will be provided with a free music education and an instrument. But the cello that will be assigned to me had no strings or a bow. So my mother didn't have money to buy those things, so I had to wait for a supply to come all the way from the capital, Caracas, in order to receive my cello. Meanwhile, I started my training, sight singing, music notation, and observing the other students with their cellos. But like everything else, my 10-year-old patience and understanding of the situation had a limit. And I told my mother, you know what, I don't think this is for me. I'm tired of waiting. I want to quit. By some sort of miracle, within days, a set of strings appeared and a bow, and I was called into the director's office. And he handed me the cello. I was so excited. I ran with my cello to my music teacher, my cello teacher, and within 15 minutes, I had caught up with the rest of the class. No surprise there. During those months, I was watching very intently, and I was practicing in my head and in my arm. So I wasn't really starting from scratch. Another year passed, and I was promoted as the principal chair of my youth orchestra and given a job with a small stipend as the cello coach. And so my career as a cellist started. It was around that time when my parents sold the house where I was born, and my mother bought a place in a low-income area. Drugs and crime were a daily sight, but I continued my music lessons. Another year passed, and another angel walked into my life, this time in the form and shape and name of a crazy-looking man called Henry Zambrano, also known as El Diablo, Spanish for the devil. El Diablo was the regional director of youth orchestras in the area, and one day, El Diablo walked into my house. He wanted to convince my mother to let me come with him. He was a very persuasive man, handsome and wild, with piercing eyes and an unusually loud voice and charm. He knew that I had a talent, but it could only be developed with intense training and a safe environment. None of those things my mother could afford to provide for me. So my mother was frustrated and sad to think that her baby boy would leave a few years too soon. She can still remember El Diablo's voice in her head. If you want your son to become somebody, you have to let him come with me. She was crying, I was crying, she agreed. I moved to the city of Guanare, about 2 hours drive from my hometown, but without a car in the family or money to pay for commuting, I wouldn't see my parents for months at a time. I signed up at a public school for my 7th grade, only to drop off for 2 years. I joined El Diablo's orchestra, a full-time orchestra, and I missed home terribly, and my health decayed at that time. It was around the time that another angel walked into my life. El Diablo had a brother. His name was Roberto Zambrano. He was a young cellist returning from a few years' studies in Europe. He was an intense teacher, to say the least. He had very high standards of work ethics and discipline, something that I was lacking and craving at the same time. With him, a normal day during that time will be, I will practice all morning, quick lunch, practice all afternoon, rehearse with El Diablo from 7 to 10 p.m. in this orchestra, quick dinner with Roberto, and then we practice with Roberto until 3 a.m. I would do the same thing. One time I practiced so much in preparation for my debut as a soloist that I cut my thumb finger with a string. And I put super glue on it, of course, and played the concert with minor bleeding. I lived like that for a couple of years. So by the time I turned 15-year-old, I became the principal cello of El Diablo's orchestra. I also started teaching at 2 music schools. Fast forward to the year 2000. I was 20 years old. I was offered a full ride scholarship to attend Baylor University in Texas. And later I came to the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston. Just to put things in perspective, for the past 10 years or so, I have collaborated with incredible artists. I have performed in the most prestigious music festivals and halls in the world. I'm the principal cello of 3 regional orchestras. Most recently, I'm also teaching locally and abroad. And my last blessing is that I married a beautiful wife, and I was blessed with an insanely cute baby. Or it's just me, I don't know. A couple of years ago, I was asking my mother, back at home in Venezuela, I was asking for some of the friends that I made as I was growing up when I was living with her, and her response was shocking. Without exception, all of them had joined the drug gangs and are currently now either in jail or dead. Now, there is a high chance there that had I stayed there, I would have shared the same fate. I think music entered my life and offered me options, opportunities, when I was born with 0. And with the help of those people along the way, they opened the door to a world of opportunity and possibility. Now, with the help of my wonderful friend and incredible Brazilian pianist, Victor Querales, I will perform an excerpt from the Grand Tango by Argentinian composer Astor Piazzolla. And I would like to dedicate it in memory of my late father, who would have loved to see me perform this tango today. Thank you very much.